welcome to the Hall of Fame podcast organized by Femfort Uganda. My name is Esther Awor. I am a lawyer and I work here with Femfort. With me today I have beautiful ladies. I can't wait to hear what they have to tell us today. Amazing smiles, ladies, and amazing voices. Today we are under the theme, claiming space. How can civil society organizations, especially women-led, claim the space? Today our main objective is to look at some of the opportunities, the challenges, the barriers that come with both the traditional and the non-traditional civil society organizations that are women-led in this country. So for those of you who do not know what traditional CSOs are, that is civil society organizations, those are organizations that have existed for quite some time, but also are in the formal structure, whereas the non-traditional civil society organizations are those that may have an informal structure, also existed for a lesser period of time compared to the traditional ones, but also these could be youth-led organizations and all those marginalized organizations that you could think about. So, to kick us off, we shall have these ladies introduce themselves, tell us who they are, so that we're not asking ourselves who is this talking, and all that. So I think we'll start from, let's see, okay, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Esther. Hello, everyone. I'm very, very happy to be here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
My name is Sharifa Chibirango, and I'm an executive director of a beautiful organization called the Center for Rehabilitation of Survivors of Acid Attacks and Burns Violence. So I work with people that have been burnt. My civic journey started way back, over 7 years now.
Wow.
And worked on youth. I started with youth and health policy, and that was around 2018, 2019 when we started working on the National Youth Manifesto, the East African Youth Policy. I was part of those processes. The National Adolescent Health Policy. Yeah, we're part of all those processes, and all that experience has told me that policy starts with listening to the realities of people it is going to serve. But also I've been so much into community engagement, gender justice, youth advocacy and public policy, engaging in community and mainly and national decision making.
Wow.
Yeah.
So many policies. I can't keep up.
Yeah. So, hi everyone, my name is Rachel Tafumba. I work with the Women's Program Initiative as a legal officer. So I've been working with them for a year now, but just briefly about Women's Program Initiative, commonly known as WPI. We are a feminist-led organization, and we are really just working towards a just and equitable society where all girls and women in their diversities are free from all forms of violence. So how we get to do our work, we do legal aid work. We run a legal aid clinic. We do a lot of work around research. We've done a lot of research work around, say, marginalized communities. We've done research around policies that have been put in place by government. So you can look at, say, analysis of the sexual offences bill, analysis of the marriage bill, and the AHA. So that's some work we do around research. So we also do public interest litigation, where we generally look at issues that are constantly happening in specific communities, and then we reach out to the people that have been affected, and then we take on the mantle, we go to court, and we argue out these cases. So maybe you've heard about us around the polygamy case, you've heard about WPI do the diapers case, where we challenge the taxation, the increased taxation on adult diapers. We have cases on abortion that are ongoing, and yeah, so we do public interest litigation, research work. We also reach out to universities and do mentorship sessions. So we have groundwork sessions at Cavendish and the International University of East Africa. So ideally, we just want the conversations around women issues running around every place where women's voices are existing. So be it in schools, be it in government spaces, be it in educational institutions, we are there and we're doing the work, and we are just excited to be here.
Wow, so many words.
day, everyone. Good day, everyone. My name is Tureho Danisa Karunji. I work with Uganda Women's Network. Just a bit about Uganda Women's Network. We are, like the name says, a network of women's rights organizations. 32 years old. We were formed in 1993 as Uganda was going to be represented in the Beijing Platform for Action in 1995. So the idea was that women's rights organizations in Uganda ought to have one solid directed voice, right? So that we are represented in a unified manner. So we had a number of organizations come on board in 1993. Some of them are still existent. You have ACFORD as one of them. But our membership has grown. Right now we are 24 member organizations and 13 individual members. Women's Pro Bono Initiative is one of our member organizations. We have FIDA Uganda, WOGNET. So the idea is to have representation across different aisles, from technology, disability rights, legal aid, whatever it might be, and to also have the individual voices come through in regards to the needs of women. We're also a research and advocacy organization. We've done a lot of work around the Domestic Violence Act, right now the Sexual Offences Bill, the Marriage Bill. Those are coalitions and groups in which we are part of, and a lot of advocacy work around that. We also do a lot of research. Every election period we produce what we call the National Women's Manifesto, a research on the needs of women in the country with a focus to the next 5 years and what our priorities should be like as a government system. So Uganda Women's Network is a very diverse organization. We have had shelters in, we also do a lot of work around access to justice. We've had GBV shelters in Kamuli and Namutumba districts running for over 10 years. And yes, so I also work with Umoja Women's Run, which I think needs to come out because this is something about informal and traditional organizations. So Umoja Women's Run is a coalition put together by a number of women's rights organizations, FEMFORD, Women's Pro Bono Initiative, ONET, to look towards sustaining our own funding as a country. It starts with a run, and the run pushes awareness, and the awareness pushes local philanthropy and continental philanthropy. So this is where I stand. As an individual, I've worked with a number of organizations aside from ONET that deal in menstrual justice, women's leadership and communication, and I look forward to doing much more work in the women's rights space.
Interesting. We want to stand up and give an innovation to all of this, but unfortunately the speakers may hinder us. That said, everyone else here, as you've heard, everyone is doing something in the women's space. So we're going to begin with the first elephant in the room. Yesterday I was watching a clip and they said it was an animation and there were animals in the room, and then they said we'll start with the elephant in the room. So there was actually an elephant in the room. So they started off. So our elephant in the room is knowing what is actually claiming the space, and what space do we want to claim as women organizations in this country? What is claiming space?
So I think that it's important for us to understand that the civil society organization space is a wide space, and we are all doing different things, but at the end of the day, for you to be able to cause impact in the communities within which you work, you have to kind of have a space you occupy. So I think claiming space is really asserting yourself within the civil society space, to be known, one, for what you do, and to be unapologetic about how you're doing it, right? It does not necessarily have to be the everyday known way of doing things, but like you stand out for what you do, for how unique it is, and you are constantly having conversations around that you do. So when they talk about women rights, they should be able to think about your organization, because that is something that you have assigned yourself to be known for. That is your niche. If you are saying that your niche is around technology, that should be it. And everyone within the civil society space should know that that is what you do. So I think claiming space is really about making sure that at the end of the day, a conversation around your work cannot happen without your organization being made known or handled in that particular conversation. So I think, to me, that is what claiming space looks like.
Okay. How about in the global context? Because now sometimes we limit things to, just the women organizations as we speak about. In other spaces, say the governments, the policy makers, yes, and all that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like I said, much as you are known for this particular work in the civil society space, that is where your connecting channel starts. So when people are in parliament and they're having conversation around women's rights, can they be able to say that, oh, we think that women can do that, we think that WPI can lead on that, in that moment, in that particular second? Can they think about the organization first? Or do people have to sit back and then Google and look for organizations that do that particular kind of work? So I think that at the point where you claim your space within the civil society organizations, referrals are automatic. It tends to just happen for you in that sense, because you have made yourself known for that particular thing, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that is how it starts, and then you just keep on going up until you are in whatever space you intend to be in.
Wow. Let's first hear from how the non-traditional looks like. How is claiming space?
For me, I think as us and how we identify ourselves, we should use a smart strategy of claiming spaces in a way that, you've talked to a global perspective and government perspective. You've seen where we feel like our spaces are hard, but the way they represent us is misrepresented. So for me, it's more of following up on what government or any other spaces are working in terms of our rights as us, as women, but also being able to participate in decision-making processes at all costs without being judged, but rather receptive and accepted and appreciated in whatever capacity that I am. To me, that's how I see it.
Wow. Here's Donita.
Great.
Existed for over 30 years.
Over 30 years. And yes, I think the journey of Woman is a bit different. Like I said, we started off in a manner that we were behind or ahead of different women's rights organizations. There are a number of them that propelled us. So our journey is not one that started like the traditional CSO, where we had to validate our cause and we had to justify our existence and why we were put together. Our existence was already predetermined by the different organizations and individuals that crafted us as an organization. And that is something that comes into claiming space. When we have that conversation, we need to have a conversation of who is going to listen to you when you're starting your work, because that is the hardest thing. You need to convince people that your work is valid, that it is necessary, that you will do it well, that you have the capacity to do it and the knowledge to do it. Whilst we had to prove that as an organization, the weight was not as heavy as a traditional or a non-traditional organization that is starting out has to be. So we need to create a space. When we talk about claiming space, it involves a narrative of, first of all, how do you make these spaces somewhere someone feels comfortable starting in and continuing in and being heard in? It is not just the aspect of, it's not automatic that your work will allow you to access spaces that people now think of you. There is a lot of groundwork that has to be done in regards to proving your results. So how do we make it easier for people to prove themselves? They have good work, but how is that good work being viewed and heard? And more than that, how is that good work being sustained? Because claiming spaces the conversation around claiming spaces cannot be had without the aspect of resources. Whether resources be people, whether it be money, whether it be spaces. We have had claims that, in certain civil society spaces, they keep to their traditional groups and individuals and persons, and it's very hard to penetrate those spaces. So when we talk about claiming spaces, we need to have a whole conversation of, let us make these things open. As long as someone stands for the cause, as long as someone is doing the work, why are we not giving them the opportunity to exist? Why are we not extending an invitation? It is as easy as it is. It's not as easy, but it is a great starting point.
Okay, so now coming back to you, Danita, FemFort is organizing this particular podcast under the Local Leadership Lab, that is the LL project. Mm-hmm. And the answers as to why we actually called it Claiming Spaces, because we wanted to understand what kind of spaces exist that actually need to be claimed in the first place. And for somebody, as you've hinted on some of the barriers that are preventing certain organizations from actually existing. Just help us understand, what are some of these spaces that you think should actually be claimed?
Okay, great. And I'm going to come at this from two angles. The angle of Uganda Women's Network and the angle of Umoja Women's Run, because I feel like that's very representative. Like I said, Umoja, so when we speak of the spaces, we speak of spaces, first of all, being in a room. Like, being in a room is a lot.
Yeah.
It is actually a lot. Some people are blacklisted. Some people have never had them. They will send them message over and over again. And they will not hear you. You will go to an organization over and over and over again, and they will not hear you. You will go to a coalition over and over and over again, and they will not hear you.
Yeah.
Being in the room is the first step. But more than that, having the platform to interact with those that can give you the resources to continue. When I speak of this, I mean from multiple angles. Your fellow CSOs, the donors, on which majority.
Yeah, I think there's some people here who don't understand CSOs, GBV.
So civil society organizations, the WBIs, the FEM boards, and whatnot. The government of Uganda, as women's rights organization, our ministry is the Ministry of Gender, right? But it is not as straightforward as me walking up to the Ministry of Gender and saying, hi, I'm running this really nice project. I would like you to just come on. It's not even monetary support. I would just like you to endorse my project, review it, validate it, say that it is good, because that carries weight.
Yeah.
That actually carries weight. It is not necessarily simple. I realized it as, all of us were working on this run, on the Women's Run, that the endorsement of the Ministry of Gender went a long way in opening certain doors for us. It just really put it in perspective, but more than that, in the work I've done in traditional CSOs, you will receive a partner, particularly those that are in the corporate space, who will ask you, what is your relationship with the Ministry of Gender? Is it something you're building, or is it something concrete? And once you say it is something concrete and you can prove it, the doors that open to you. And these doors are not just space, they're not just maybe you can attend the meeting. It is monetary support. The support you need to conduct a project is suddenly available. It is access to individuals you never had access to before. But more than that, when we speak of spaces, there's an angle I think we really need to bring in, which is that of the space to understand how to run an organization. A lot of us start from a point of goodwill. We want to do something great, but we don't have the resources in regards to the knowledge, the know-how, the technical know-how of how to do these things. We don't know how to fundraise, we don't know how to manage our accounting systems, we don't know how to manage our monitoring and evaluation systems, we don't know anything. We don't know how to write a concept note sometimes. And that's okay, because you're starting from a good place. One of the spaces we need to claim, one of the spaces that needs to be existent, is one that is accessible, one that is available to teach us how to run our organizations and to run them well, especially as we're starting. So for mine, it's those three angles: the accessibility to individuals and spaces, being in the room itself, and helping us understand how we can manage ourselves in a way that actually is tangible and profitable to us as an organization.
With non-tradition, it's a bit complex. I feel like the way Karunji has explained it more benefits the traditional spaces. But with non-tradition, it's really complex because it comes with security, the type of space you're in, for you to be heard. Like she explains, the space at that particular time, we should know how to collaborate with certain individuals for us to be heard. Sometimes it just takes one individual, because they categorize us in very, very different ways. And when it comes to government, even if they know we belong in different categories, they will term us into one category for them to pass whatever they want to pass that is in their benefit and their interests. So for us as non-traditional organizations, I feel like we need to, first of all, know how best can we be heard, through who, in what space, through who, how do we speak out to these people to hear us. So it's really a bit complex, but if we learn from best practices, what worked and what has worked, and we merge them together to get the best strategies of filming the spaces, I think it would work more. That we are still learning. We are still learning, and we're still fighting for those spaces. You get. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to non-tradition, it comes with a lot of safety. Where do I speak it from, and see how we can collaborate with traditional established CSOs to hear and put us in their spaces, which is still very hard and still a challenge that we're facing. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So now, Rachel here is going to help us understand a little bit. She's heard from Danita and Sharifa, and I'm sure she's cooking something in her head. But tell us, what do you understand?
So I think the majority of what the space looks like has been discussed by Danita quite extensively. But then, like I had initially said, the space is ideally people. Yes? The space is people. So you are trying to penetrate these people in terms of how much you can utilize their capital, in terms of the people they know. So you know that at the end of the day, you're going to apply for a grant, but that grant is tied to who can recommend you and all these things. So I think that those people that have for a very long time been known to establish this particular space, to be the voice of consensus. So when, for example, say Honorable Miriam Matembe says something, it's easily going to be taken as what the rest of the organizations are saying, right? Because they consider her an OG in these things. So I think that at the end of the day, what is important is, like Danita has said, these people that have been able to establish the space that we all so desperately want to be a part of should make sure that these spaces are accessible, yeah? Because let people just come and be part of this. Let them be able to tap into the well of knowledge and experience that you have within this space that you've established, right? But then let them not be so much of the categorization that keeps us into thinking, okay, these are traditional organizations, so they ought to work together. These are non-traditional organizations, they ought to stick together. No, because at the end of the day, the work we're trying to do penetrates a realm of like experiences. The diversity of women is like, why? We're all trying to contribute to the same thing. Gender justice, we're all trying to contribute to the same thing. Equity, we're trying to ensure that all these girls, regardless, she's working with acid survivors, she's still trying to ensure that they access justice. She's trying to see that they're free from violence. I am working probably from like a very legal perspective, but at the end of the day, it's the same thing I'm trying to do. Danita is trying to bring organizations together, right? So she's still trying to do the same thing. The end person that we seek to benefit is that woman, that young girl who so desperately wants to be heard, to be seen. So how do we try to not formalize it so much and make it look like, oh my God, yeah, if you're not part of this specific body, you don't belong, what you're doing is not valid, and try to ensure that at the end of the day, if I called on to Danita and I'm like, can you guys be able to do ABC, they're able to do it without necessarily questioning where I'm coming from, because they understand the struggle is the same. Yeah? So at the point where we understand that the struggle is the same, it makes it easier for us to work, because these formalities just complicate things. Then you're going to realize certain grassroots organizations or certain non-traditional organizations saying, we've been left out of the space, we feel left out of the space. Even if organization X is organizing, they feel like, yeah, we're not getting an invitation because they don't understand us the way we want to be understood. So how do we go to understanding that the struggle is the same, and regardless how people are doing it, they're still doing it for the same cause? How do we incorporate what FemFort, what UONET, what Rights for Her is doing to ensure that we are all sticking to the struggle? Because if we over formalize this, technicalize it, it becomes undesirable, because there is a reason as to why probably organization X is not yet registered. Like, you have to understand that there's certain like technicalities around it, but does that mean they do not deserve a seat at the table? Why is it that the formalities to join certain, say, coalitions are very complex? Yeah, probably make it easier for these people to come on board because the struggle is the same.
I have Mary's observation.
I'm actually seeing a big issue there. You talked of like those big persons and that have the spaces. But that's where the big question comes in. Are you aware that sometimes these people have been involved in our spaces? They actually know we exist and they know what we do and what we stand for. But even when the spaces are there, they are not solid and comfortable enough to speak for our rights.
Speaking on that same point, Sharifana's coming to you. You people are just going ahead of me. Are you seeing this?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I actually wanted to come to you and ask, what are some that you see in the non-traditional CSOs? She's mentioned one of them in terms of formalities and all these structure and all that stuff. What are some of these things that you think really hinder non-traditional CSOs from getting a chance or claiming that space that we are all talking about?
First and foremost, we as non-traditional, what I've seen based on experience and working with non-traditional personnel and grassroots CSOs, there is a lot that we lack in terms of capacity. We lack a lot of capacity building. And there is a way as us, I think it's also a barrier, there is a way as us non-traditional grassroots organization and personnel have taken ourselves in a vulnerability perspective. Capacity. Then the other thing, we don't have data. We don't have evidence-based information. Yes, I want to access space, but do I have the necessary data to access the space? You can't say we are facing ABCD. Where is the evidence? Where is the proof? We have not.
So what is preventing you from getting that data?
First is funding, but also established CSOs have used us to their interests to get what they want. What do I say? Let's say government. Government can come up with a program and they use us to get the data that they want. You'll find that last time we were discussing, when you go to a hospital, in a referral hospital or a government hospital, it is always, when you look at gender, there is male and female, but there is also other categories. But when they disseminate that data and put it all together, it's only disseminated in male, female. So you'll find that some data is missing. What about us? Let's say like the LBQ. You get. What about that data? That data misses out in most cases in terms of government programs. You get. The other thing is the barrier comes in where established organizations are selfish. When they get like opportunities, they are not free to share. They have not taken time to, let's say if there is a project, they have not taken time to analyze the SWOT of grassroots organizations to know and to know how they can align their work with what we do and give us some of those opportunities to work with them and collaborate. You get. Sometimes when it comes to information and opportunity sharing, it is for formality, last minute. So by the time it comes, they have already gone through and they have already gotten the opportunity. By the time it reaches to you, you have no chance to take up that space and take up that opportunity. That is also another barrier. But they have also not really invested in capacitating us grassroots organization to be at the level where we feel there is building more trust. You know, there is this saying, there is older feminism and there is this younger feminism.
The middle age.
Yes.
And we have to have now three
There is
levels.
what worked and what has worked.
Yeah.
You get. How about they put in more capacity to give us the capacity to show us how things worked for them? Because we find that even when it comes to donor and funding, there is more trust in older feminism than the younger feminism. So how about we collaborate and work together so that when these opportunities come, the trust grows from them collaborating with us and giving us those spaces and claiming them and giving us the capacity to be fully confident to claim the spaces. Yes.
Yes, Anita, because you
district women's organizations that already exist. So we go ahead, identify them, analyze them, capacitate them, and then we work with them to implement these policies. We sub-grant them, or we work in a consortium, or we apply with them for the grants that we're partners in this. We tend to, I believe we did this in 38 districts, don't quote me on this, but I know there are over 30 districts in which we've utilized this model. The beauty about that is the continuance of the work. When we leave a district, we know that there is still someone on the ground who is, first of all, continuing to apply to help the grant to continue their work, but they have the capacity to do so. We have been able to establish structures in which we're able to refer people in different districts, like, oh, you can work with this organization. If you're a survivor, you can reach out to this shelter in this organization, or you can reach out to this organization with psychosocial support. So we always work within networks to necessitate that. So when Sharifa says that the aspect of organizations working individually is a problem, it is actually a very, very big problem. There's this misconception that the space is too small. At work, we always say that if we went and did maybe an outreach, or we did a project in Wakiso district, and we worked in 5 sub-counties, and in those 5 sub-counties, we reached out to maybe 1,000 people each. That's about 5,000 people, right? There are still about 20,000 people left in that sub-county that we have not touched at all. We have not interfaced with.
We do not know about.
Exactly. And this is a country of 44 million people. The space is not small. In fact, the numbers are not enough to deliver these things. We need to operate under the angle that every organization has relevance because the numbers necessitate it. It's like this thing of we have too few doctors and so many patients, or we keep on saying we're receiving so many lawyers graduating every year, but where are they going? The need is there in this country. The need is there for CSOs. Now, how do we work together as quote-unquote established organizations to go ahead and make sure that there is continuity in our work through capacity building but there's another aspect to this that I really have to bring out. Smaller organizations suffer in the aspect of getting that first grant is a problem.
Yeah.
Getting that first grant, being trusted, even with $2,000.
Because you don't have
any projects, you don't have anything. Nothing. So when you partner with an organization like, let's say, UONET, FEMFORT, that have had years of work that they have done, it validates your work to a whole other level. If we do work around helping people just open that door, that first grant, that first project, we have done phenomenal work in the space that we're operating to help organizations prosper. On a secondary level, you had mentioned Umoja. What I think the distinct model is in Umoja is that we reached out to a number of organizations, regardless of whether or not you're a traditional organization, a non-traditional organization, because from the women's rights angle, I always say that the women's rights battle has been won based on numbers. Whether the numbers are visible, whether the numbers are invisible, that there are people in different spaces of the country, of the world, moving with the same agenda is a phenomenal aspect. It's something that is quote-unquote revolutionary, so to speak. So when we speak of that, I do think this is a model that would be replicated by a number of non-traditional organizations. If you can't find the traditional organizations, find each other. At the very least, find each other, see what you can pull in regards to resources, see this person knows this person that can capacitate us together on accounting systems, on M&E systems, on whatever it might be. You pull those resources might be someone has social media strength, but more than that, look beyond our barriers of associating only with traditional organizations. We have been able to establish, I think one of our most notable partnerships in Umoja has been Miss Uganda. We were really, really struggling a lot in regards to visibility, and actually to some extent we still are, but that's not the point. In regards to visibility before we approached them. But in regards to that association, we were able to fill in a gap that we had. Now, one post is enough to get 5,000 people viewing a cause that you had 20 people, and the 20 people are working in the organization viewing.
You're saying, we posted on LinkedIn.
We
posts. Exactly. So we need to look, and I always say this at work, that we need to look beyond our traditional spaces, look to corporate spaces, look to individuals that care. There are certain socialites, I think they call them socialites, who actually care for causes. And you find them and you work with them. It's not easy. It really, really isn't easy. Some people ask you for money, some people ask you for where you are, some people ask you. But in the end, if you just find one person, it really, really goes a long way.
But like the biggest barrier? You see what she said.
Yeah.
The people that we trust can actually fight for our rights in the non-traditional CSO space. I'm not comfortable and confident and solid enough to speak it out and talk about our rights and non-traditional organizations. Yes.
Yes, please.
Something. So I think I don't know if any of you is aware of like a general database that has organizations, what they do, and like what they are able to offer at
URSP doesn't.
URSP.
No, like I feel like
URSP
the URSP system, it's a bit different. You would have to specifically look for it, like be like,
I want this
for this organization. You have to have one name or something.
Yeah.
But I mean like a database that is able to like sort of. I know we are not very much into this grouping thing, but like we know that when we are looking for women's rights, feminist organizations, this is the list. So you know that, okay, maybe these are the traditional ones, these are the grassroots ones, these are the CBOs, but okay, these ones are working with persons with disability, these ones are working with trauma victims. Like, I feel like we need something like that at this point in Uganda. We have very many organizations that are being run. Some of them you've never heard of. You've seen instances where you organize a meeting and someone comes and they register their organization and you're like, so you're trying to find out what this organization does or what they do. So I feel like that is very important for us at this point. We need like some sort of database that is formalized, that ensures that at the end of the day, when you need someone, you can easily reach out to them. But also I think that organizations should tap more into the existing coalitions and consortiums, but they can also go ahead to form their own.
Exactly.
Because you see that when you are organization X alone, it's harder for you to penetrate certain spaces. But if it's like an umbrella of organizations that are doing the same thing, when you applied for the grant and there is need for you to establish a portfolio, an existing portfolio, you might not have it, but 3 of the organizations that exist have it already. So you already have that added advantage in the sense that you will be able to tap into that, say, grant, that funding that exists by just existing as an umbrella body. The politics within that umbrella body are not for discussion today, but what I think is that you might not have the capacity as a smaller organization, but like Danita said, leverage on the potentials of each other and just utilize them, because it's going to take forever for us to have the conversation around, oh, we don't trust them enough, oh, they don't trust us enough, oh, we don't do this.
This one's taking a large share.
This one wants to take a larger share. They want to shine over us. They're not tagging us on their posts. Those conversations.
They're not tagging us.
Yeah. They put our logo on their posts. Like, those conversations will continue to exist. The point is, are you able to establish yourself in the space to the extent that you can impact the people you claim you want to impact? If you are to go into the politics of, oh no, if we partner with this organization, they're going to overshine us, they're going to do this to us, they're going to do this to us. Remember, there are people that you're supposed to represent. Those people are suffering because you as the ED, you as the boss, you have said, me, I'm not going to ask for help. Me, I'm not going to reach out to person X, person Y. But like at the end of the day, like I said, the struggle is the same. And if we constantly remember the fact that the struggle is the same, we are going to start looking at things differently. It's not going to be, oh, she's a young feminist, I don't like how she does her things. To, is she still speaking to the same thing? Is she speaking to maternal mortality? Is she speaking to the issues that we have around access to, say, safe abortions? Is she speaking to those things? If she is, then she is my friend. She's not my enemy just because she is 20 years younger than me. And now you're saying, oh, I don't like how these younger feminists extremists do their things.
Yes.
They are always radical. They're always like trying to. But we built systems. We did this. I think the conversation should go outside the politics and focus on the struggle. If you can find 2 more people that are in the struggle with you, go with those 2. Don't wait for certain organization X to give you their blessing for you to be able to like proceed with what you're doing.
So now I have a follow-up question for you, Rachel. So Rachel, we've spoken so much about non-traditional civil society organizations, and I think we should also throw more light also to the traditional ones, because I know they're also facing some challenges here and there, even at a global level. In as much as the non-traditional ones are, when we put like a scale, they are suffering more.
Yes,
they're suffering more. But the traditional ones are also suffering. So what are some of those challenges that you people are facing in traditional spaces?
I think that when it comes to, first of all, claiming the space, I think with most traditional spaces, they have tried, they have gotten somewhere. There are certain organizations you are sure you will find at an event that has been organized. Like, you don't even have to see the guest list. You see that you see the concept note and you're like, I know someone from this organization is coming, right? So when it comes to being known, to establishing their positions, I think most of them have done like quite the job at putting themselves there. But like, the conversation is still going to go around and around and around, but then the issue comes back to sustainable funding. I think that is the biggest problem that traditional organizations have. They have the capacity, they have the experience, they have all these things, but the issue of sustainable funding is something that is not to be looked at lightly, because, like I said, our work is dependent on how much money we have. Like, okay, people have goodwill, people will volunteer, people will do these things, but you need a certain level of funding for you to be able to do that. So Danita has put together a think piece that is around sustainable funding.
Bureaucratic process or registration. Government tightens everything with a process now. The scrutiny there at the NGO bureau is tough. They want to know the type of work you do. They have to audit what you do at an annual basis. Because now, the last time I was there, they are planning to start giving working permits and registration annually. After like auditing, what are you doing? Is it in line with what you told us that you're doing? So I feel like as non-traditional civil society organization, it puts us in a safety brackets, how we say.
So then I'm going to ask you a question. How then, in as much as there's this whole bureaucracy and all that stuff, what kind of ideal world would you want to live in as a non-traditional organization? Because again, we need to understand that why maybe URSB is having all this follow-up and what is sometimes people create organizations and it's just there, right? They're not doing anything, but also sometimes people create organizations and they're getting funding from the organizations and using it for things that maybe may be contrary to what the organization was set up to do. So then I'd ask, what is your ideal world that you look at for an organization to start up, for example?
Like to start up or like
to operate? To
operate.
Yes.
Me, I think, I don't know if it's government or what, but government should like cut on the bureaucratic processes and situations. I look at having a space where women, young people, survivors are free to come to decision-making tables without being judged, but rather appreciated and they are received the way they are. That's what I look at, rather than being, what do I do, what do I believe in? That is me, it is a human right. So me, I look at us, I hope that we achieve that in the future, but me, I would want to see us being all together, let it government or what, accept us the way we are, involve us in spaces. We have good ideas, we have good decision-making, good decisions that we can put on table and can help us move forward as a country and as individuals, not just looking at what is happening, but we should also look at the future of the country. The world evolves and changes every day.
Okay.
Yeah, so we should also look at that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Danita, I'm going to come back to you.
Oh, darling.
What is your ideal space that you look at? How a non-traditional or even a traditional civil society organization can operate in this country?
Okay, great. Thank you for that question, Esther. And I want to come to it, but I also want to supplement something in regards to the issues that traditional organizations are facing. When we talk about getting in the room itself, traditional organizations also face that problem on a global context, right? This manifests in the angle of, I've been invited for this conference. Luckily, the entity that invited us has paid for our tickets. Sometimes they might not even pay for our tickets, and we might not have the resourcing to cover that. Yeah. But then the visa application process you will be grounded in this country till kingdom come. In fact, your visa will come after 3 months after the event has happened. And what is the point? What is the essence of it all? Countries are becoming more nationalistic in their funding. When we speak of that, we mean that, first of all, we saw this year the largest donor funding cut, I think, in the history of donor funding. I might be exaggerating things. I don't think I am. We lost as a country, I think, over $1 billion in funding, just like that. Not even a few months. Someone woke up in the morning and the next day, people had lost jobs, people had lost access to medication, people had lost access to their life-saving services. When we speak of sustainability of our work, especially as women's rights organizations, there is something in regards to the criticalness of continuity of all our projects. You're not going to go and change, let's see, FGM with a 12-month project. It is not viable. It requires...
You have to talk to the leaders, then
the mothers. Everyone has to be involved. There has to be mindset shift. When funding is cut, even for a traditional organization, then continuity of that project, you're back to ground zero. In fact, you're back to a negative, because now you're viewed as a threat. People have room to think of you a bit more from a threatening angle. So you've come back to a negative standpoint. So Rachel was speaking to the think piece that I was talking about, that I had written. And one of the aspects that I elaborate on in that is that we must look towards local financing, but not just local. By local, I don't mean Chisasi, I don't mean Kampala, I don't mean Uganda, I mean continental funding. We must look into how to pool resources. Last year, Africans put together 9% of all the funding that we used on the continent. 9%. That is 91% we were bringing in things from all the rest of the world. It is deplorable.
And yet we are very rich as Africa.
We're very, very rich in theory, and in practice it is there. We see the gold. Sometimes in the airport, if you're strategic, you might see something being... That's a different conversation. But what I'm trying to say is that there is the aspect of funding that must be talked about. It's something that affects us across the board. It's something that affects the consistency of our work, the ability to access spaces on a continental level. But more than that, when funding comes in, there's an aspect of, do I also get control on how this is implemented, right? We've had conversations. A few months ago, I did research on underinvestment on women's rights organizations. One of the things that came out... We were
part of that.
FEMPOT was a part of that. And one of the things that came out was the idea that a donor would decide that women in northern Uganda need lube as opposed to food as a starting point. So you're going to give a community, and you've decided that what you're going to give is lubricants for widows who have lost their husbands, people who do not have food, and they're asking you, but we can't even sit and listen to you, and this is not contextually relevant. We need to be able to look as organizations and see and decide what our problems are and how to solve them. There needs to be that trust, the trust from donors, the trust from the government, the trust from CSOs amongst ourselves, but also in ourselves, that we have the capability to implement these projects and implement them well. And we need to have the ability to sustain these projects. Longevity is the only way we are going to be able to get to a point wherein we say that in a year we have maybe, I don't want to say I would say it's unrealistic to say there will be no domestic violence case, but we can't be having 12,000 cases in a year. It is madness. It is madness. So what I'm trying to say in summary is that the financing aspect is one we need to speak of a bit more. So when we look at an ideal world for a non-traditional organization or traditional organization, mine comes back to sustainability of our work. How I think if you take time to just look at some of the grant calls that are put out, the direction in prioritization has shifted entirely. If we look at GBV, traditional GBV, it is being funded like this, sprinkle. But we'll see tech-facilitated GBV that is in trend. People fund things that are in trend, not necessarily what is happening on ground. Climate change is a conversation, valid points, but we still need help. The things that the other people are running are no less valid. So ours looks into continuity of our work. How are we continuing our work in 10 years? In 10 years, on a personal level, and don't quote me on this, please, for my biography. On a personal level, I see donor funding will have dropped exponentially in the next 10 years. And if we as Africans do not think on how we are going to finance our own work, how we're going to empower people economically so that they can also finance our own work, because you're not going to pull from an empty cup. The cups in this country are far too empty. In fact, they are dehydrated. So we need to empower ourselves economically, figure out that question.
So in terms of empowering ourselves economically, what are some of the things that we can do to empower ourselves economically?
So Danita does make a valid point about the fact that we are moving towards the non-existence of donor funding. So we did an analysis of the Trump executive orders and the effect it had on women rights organizations in Uganda, still accessible on our website. So the thing is, when you look at...
Which website is it for?
The Women's Pro Bono Initiative website. So we have an analysis of the effect of Trump's executive orders on women's rights organizations. So the conversation that runs throughout is that, one, it's not necessarily a shocker that this happened. Yes? So that means even if we were to say that, okay, maybe like if say this person left power and someone else came in, that will be change, right? So we then say, oh, there's hope that after 5 years, after 10 years, we might have some funding. So there is that inconsistency, right, that is bound to exist. The conversation is solid, that we're going to get to a point where they will keep narrowing what they can invest in, what they are willing to give you money for, but you as an organization, you cannot keep narrowing the scope of your work, because that is what you set out to do, and you're not going to continuously mutate to be able to adapt. So if they say they want someone who is doing climate justice, you're going to change a bit of your work to make sure you have like some sort of climate funding work. So when it comes back to organizations themselves, I know that we run non-profits, yes, but some of the organizations we had when we were doing the consultative meeting were telling us how they are moving to starting like business arms of their organizations to ensure that they have something. So there was one who was telling us about how they were rearing chicken on like a commercial basis to ensure that they're able to fund their work, because they realize that UNAIDS will go, USAID will go, these guys will go, these guys will go, these guys will go. But then the people that you serve are not going anywhere.
Exactly.
Because remember, the greatest part of work that CSOs do is work that governments are not doing. Or
they complement.
So they are complementing government, and to a certain extent, they are even the only people doing the work. Yeah. So that means that even when the funding goes, the people you serve are not going anywhere. They are still existing. So we need to start thinking about how we get to making profit, not from the non-profit organizations. The non-profit organizations should stick to providing for the needs of those people that we serve. But as an organization, you need to sustain yourself, because a one-man organization cannot do the work you've been doing because you have had to lay off staff. So we have to consider.
But also, how can we empower our communities, not to be solely dependent on, say, the civil society organization? Or will this be getting you out of business? Because you see, because again, it's one thing for us to say we are going to help maybe the people in Mayuge district handle their pads or whatever projects that we have in, let's say, in Mayuge district or in Wakiso, right? And then these people are used that say FemFort or Women Pro Bono Initiative is going to always be there to give us this kind of assistance, right? So how can we empower communities that even where donor funding is cut, like you said, went the beginning of the year, and it's no more funding, shelters in Uwonet have been closed, some shelters have been closed. So how can we empower communities to not be dependent on us? It's like our parents when we're growing up, and then you get to a certain age, and then they say, okay, now we have, please grow, they throw you out there.
I think that it's important for us to appreciate the fact that the structures within which we exist have made it possible for this to be continuous. So when you talk about the fact that organizations fear to do that because they think they'll be out of business, I don't think that's the case. Because you see, if that was the case, I think there wouldn't be more organizations starting up right now, right? You realize that the need for people to be dependent on CSOs is not entirely tied to the fact that they are not able to access spaces where they can be able to afford their own sanitary pads. Structures that exist right from government level up to the grassroots is what is making it hard for those people to be self-dependent. The conversation has to shift, because we cannot start saying, because government has a responsibility towards us as people, right? But the government has made it so hard for us to be able to not depend on them. So, for example, the conversation around sanitary towels, you realize that organizations, every time they do a reach out, they will be trying to buy sanitary towels. Why is that? Look at the pricing of sanitary towels. Honestly, look at the pricing. This some government that can wake up one day and say, we're going to charge you 200 shillings for OTT tax. We are going to charge you this. We are going to give this investor a tax holiday. We are going to do this. Has never come up to say, okay, for the next 2 months, we are going to have sanitary towels subsidized to say to the point that I can access it at 1,000. We've never had that conversation coming from government, but women go through menstruation on a monthly basis. Some for 2 days, some up to 7 days. But if you're not having the conversation around how they can be able to afford, you cannot say that, we are going to empower these people to self-sustain. Systems are in place to make sure they cannot be able to change their narrative. I cannot wake up one day and say, okay, I will not take the free sanitary towels that I'm being given. Like, that's the action I have. Let me tell you, everywhere I go, even a person like me, who ideally is supposed to be educated, has some money and whatnot, if I go to a place and I'm offered free sanitary towels, I'm taking them. Don't tell me that, because that is how bad it is, right? If you look at things like, say, access to water, very basic. Government is the one supposed to be doing this, but you're going to find that it's organizations that are going on ground to ensure that people can access water, people can access clean water at that. But still, the conversation is the same. It starts at government starting to take its responsibility towards its citizens more seriously. It's not about what they're doing in parliament, but how what they're doing in parliament is impacting the people on the ground, right?
Yes.
So,
all right.
But like I said, it all comes back if we can all sit together at one table, young women, young youth, and survivors, and we contribute to policies that are serving and responsive to our needs as a whole. It starts from from local government to national level. You will be able to sit in rooms in government budgeting processes. Every year there is a government budget that is allocated to every sector. If they follow the processes very well and we are allowed to sit in those processes and we give our decisions and we give in our priorities, trust me, these issues are not big for government to cover for us. Exactly. So it all starts with government. Allow us
without being judged, but receive us and accept us. To participate in budget planning processes, you will see that when budget allocates resources, it will be responsive to our actual needs.
But like you see, Danita told you about claiming the space. Being in the room matters, but the effect of the content you share in that room
Also.
appearing in the final also matters. Because you will see that some organizations have had that space. Some organizations have been able to go to parliament and have been able to speak to these things. But when the final product comes out, yes, the OTT tax, but then you see the conversations around the marriage bill, the sexual offences bill. Organizations were there, WP was there, UONET was there when we were having conversations around the marriage bill. But even just how the conversation flows, you get. You see how these guys are like, yeah, we've just brought you here so that it's on record.
Yes, that we consulted you.
Organizations. But what we are going to bring out is about those in favor say aye, those who, like you get. So I think that it is important that when you give these organizations a space to speak to you as government, you take their input as serious as you can possibly take, because these are the people that are on the ground. These are the people that are doing the work that you have constantly acted like as if is not your work. So I think that we need to be able to demand that beyond just being given a space, we should be able to hold governments accountable for not including our inputs in the final product, because then why did you call us in the first place?
Okay, now I have a follow-up question for you. The government notwithstanding, because we also have the issue of the traditional and the non-traditional CSOs existing in the same space. And you gave a point on collaboration or joining consortiums. So I'll ask you a question then. How does collaboration and accountability on your end look like? The traditional and non-traditional, but even when you speak about government actors, how does that look like?
Okay, so I think that when you talk about accountability and collaboration, it starts from the organization itself. Do you have accountability mechanisms that are transparent, that are reliable in the organization itself? Yeah. Are you sure that if say you are running a project, we trust that that project has been able to benefit the people that you claim it was meant to benefit? So as an organization, do you have self-accountability mechanisms that exist within you? If you do, great. At collaboration level, if you've collaborated with an organization X, right, do you have systems? Let's say when you are signing that MOU, did you specifically speak to accountability? Who is holding who accountable here in this partnership that we've gone into, in this consortium that we are in? Who is holding who accountable? Do we have checks and balances to ensure that when certain organizations are doing things that are contrary to the cause, we can call them to order? Do we have those systems that exist? Do we have, are we able to say that, okay, this organization is constantly given a space to represent organizations, say with government? Can we be able to say that we, as a women's movement, we are no longer comfortable with that organization leading space because they are misrepresenting us, they are not speaking the language that we are speaking? That is the kind of accountability. But at government level, which I don't necessarily think exists, but are we able to call out government and say, we told you that this is what was going to happen if you left this particular tax existing on diapers, and then government doesn't act on it, and then we're like, oh yeah, chill, we shall wait. When they bring another bill, we go back to them again. Same government, same tactics, they are not going to change anything. But then what is the accountability mechanism that exists between us and government? Because I don't seem to see it. I don't seem to understand how it goes. Are we just happy to be included in the space? Are we just happy to be there, working with, speaking with government? But then when government fails on its part, we're like, we understand the politics. We understand things are hard, things are hard. Let's wait. We have this committee. We are expecting them to come. So let's wait and see. Do they even come for these meetings? Anyway, that's another conversation. So, Danita,
so much anger and rage. You want to beat us at this point.
Can I add to
Yes, please.
But I also want to speak to the angle of, you asked a question in regards to I forgot that there was a previous question you asked before. All right, in regards to what organizations can do in regards to the sustainability of our work, particularly on a communal level, how do we make sure these communities are not dependent on us continuously? And I think whether deliberately or undeliberately, whatever it might be, we have created a system of dependence. It's actually reached a point where without this individual, without this person being in a certain space, right, we believe that we cannot do anything as a community. It's as little as transport refunds. I have to be frank. This is a personal thing. If I cannot expect people to show up in my space if there is no transport refund, but there is valid discussion, there is valid progress being made in that space, there is valid input and output being made, then we have created a system where it is problematic, it is not sustainable. Our work will not reach anywhere. And going back to the community aspect of it all, our programming needs to shift. It needs to shift from, okay, I have a community where girls cannot access school because they don't have pads. Okay, we're going to give them pads for this amount of time, maybe 3, 5, 7 months. But in that amount of time, how are we empowering their families to make sure those people are elevated from poverty? Proper elevated from poverty and cognizant of the fact that they have to provide for their daughter. Or, this might not, the whole provision of their daughter might not take 7 months because it's a mindset shift. But we can create, especially with numbers, if you are saying that every community you're working with, maybe the mothers in these organizations are going to be part of the mothers in these organizations are going to be part of this money-making projects that you already have running, right? They're going to be employees, they're going to be co-owners of it. You set up a system and you provide people with a way to make money through that system, right? Then it's a good, really, really good starting point. It's not going to be sustainable for us to keep in communities for 10 years.
Yes, just to cut you short, I want her to give hers as well. What do you think?
For me, it's about assumptions. Before you introduce yourself to a community and you say you want to do this, is it their need? What if it's wrong? You should also understand the people that you want to serve in. Get to know, first understand yourself and your culture and what you want to bring to these people. Then understand them. Once you understand them, you'll be able to collaborate with them. And whatever you want them to do, they will do it wholeheartedly with love. And that way they'll be able to be sustainable. We should take away all that narrative of they have to be given, but the way you approach the people also matters. Yeah. So it is the benefits they are getting. Impacting them is showing them the good they are getting in what you're bringing to them. And this is how I've managed to work with survivors of acid and burns violence. We have an education fund, but when you take up a child, we take a child, one child per family. Then after, we put them on a literacy program, economic literacy. Check them. This is what we expect you. We give them independence to learn on their own. As we're taking up your child, we tell you it is for 2 years. After 2 years, we want you to be able to take up your child, and it has worked. We have given them services, literacy skills services, digital literacy skills. How can you utilize whatever you have, available resources for you to use, maybe replicate and generate income from any resources that you have in your community. You get. So as we go in communities and say we want to impact their lives, we should also understand their culture, what works for them, for you not to just impact what you have on them.
Yeah.
That way, they'll be able to work on sustaining themselves and moving forward, even without donor funding.
Okay.
That's what I think.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Our time is getting fast spent. So my final question, and you will say it with your parting shots to our audience, is what advice would you give to somebody who wants to start up, for example, a traditional or non-traditional CSO, civil society organization in Uganda, in terms of how can they be included, who can they reach out to, what can they tap into in order to get their voices heard, in order for them to be able to claim the space. This could also be advice given to the organizations that are just coming up, that are growing, like Danita, Umoja, that is just coming up. So yes, you could answer that as you give your parting shots.
Me, I would say, based on my experience, because I've been part of the Network for Active Citizens. We are the people that started the Network for Active Citizens after British Council, like endorsing us. We started Network for Active Citizens. But one thing is, I would tell anyone starting up, like a grassroots, especially the non-traditional organizations, take your time. Do not rush. Take your time, learn, relearn, and understand organizational dynamics. It will save you from a lot of regrets. Invest in capacity building and service delivery. Yes.
Give us your parting shots as we end this, because I've not come back this side. After they are done, we are done.
I think that's all. I don't have much to say. Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be part of this podcast. It's really been engaging. I feel like I've claimed my space here. I've been able to speak whatever I want to say. And whatever you're doing out there and you want to start something, feel free to always reach out. FemFoot has mentors.
We do.
Yeah, you can reach out to me and ask me anything concerning capacity, organizational capacity and development systems you need in place to have a fully fledged organization in terms of registration, policies. For some, those are some of the barriers that stop us from gaining opportunities. So in terms of policies, strategic plans, reach out to me. I can help you with that.
Yes, through us, please.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, please go ahead and finish line.
Okay, so I think as we conclude, I am not going to be as how do I put it? So Sharifa is an ED. She started an organization. She knows how organizations start and how they go through it and everything. I think that when you start an organization and it's meant to help a certain group of people, one, I think you have to invest so much in understanding that group of people that you are going to be working with, that you want to impact on, so that it's not really like a blanket cover. You claim you're working with this organization, but if they asked you about them, your knowledge is just as good as what ChatGTP could give all of us. Understand the organizations within which you want to work, but also understand their needs so that you're able to craft your solution specifically for their needs. Like Sharifa said, assumptions are not good because that is where the issue of sustainability comes from. So today you're going to be doing climate justice, the next thing GBV, the next time you're doing this, you're doing this. Understand your work. And I think that is, for example, one of the ways we have been able to continuously impact the communities we work in as WPI. We understood that there was a gap when it came to legal aid service, access and provision in Uganda because of the costs and whatnot. So we tapped into that and we realized that there was a space. People need legal services, people need legal advice, but they cannot be able to afford it. They cannot be able to access it easily. So that is where we decided to put ourselves. We are still speaking to the different issues that women are facing, but we have decided to take a legal approach, right? Because we think that at the end of the day, that is where we are going to be able to address the gap that we found, and that is what we're doing. So when you found that gap, capacity, it's important for you to create and build capacity around that. This is all before you actually start the organization. I don't think that it is good for you to think you're going to learn on the job, because that comes with extra costs, that comes with extra falling back and whatnot. So I feel like all these things should be done before, so that at the point where you decide that you are going to start this organization, you're in it and you're in it till the end, right? It's not like today, okay, I am the ED, tomorrow I don't think I want to associate with that organization anymore. Can I go and I rechange it, make it a business? Like, it is like, remember the people you're serving are literally dependent on you. They have nowhere to go. So you do not have the luxury to be in it and out of it the next day. So look at how you're going to sustain yourself 10 years, 5 years, 30 years from now, like you own it, has been in place for all this time. Understand. But it is not a bad thing to not know and to ask for help. We have organizations that are established, like it has been shared before. Reach out and ask. It is not going to take away anything from you. If they do not help you, move on to the next. If they do not help you, move on to the next until you get it figured out. And then the other thing is, let's stop assuming that we understand what we are all doing.
Yeah.
Let us invest in understanding what our sister organizations are doing so that we know, can I refer this person to FemFort? You're going to refer a person to FemFort, and FemFort is going to say, oh no, we do not do that. We do not offer such a service. Do we understand the work that our sister organizations are doing before we refer people to them? Do we understand the length of aid they're going to be able to offer? Someone has come to you, they're looking for a shelter, you're sending them to an organization you know very well doesn't have anything to do with shelters, but you are sure we referred this number of people in the year to organizations to help them. So, but then at the end of the day, maybe this is just going to go to the traditional organizations. Let's interest ourselves in creating a database, an active database where we update every now and then information about us, information about what we are doing, so that everyone can access you. Everyone can access you, even if they do not have your LinkedIn, they do not have your social media. If someone is able to just put in a search, GBV, how many organizations appear, how many of them are categorized in terms of districts, in terms of areas in which they work, because that is important. I am from Oyam. If I have a problem and I'm in Oyam, and then they're telling me, oh, the only person who is going to give you legal aid is in Kampala. But then when you come to Kampala, you're done being helped, whatnot, you're going to hear, oh, my FIDA has a branch near Oyam. But because everyone knows this organization is the one doing this, is the one doing this, everyone is sending everyone to that same organization. Let us remember that we are all in it for the same struggle. We are helping the same people. So it does not take away from us if we have information about our work, what we do out there, easily accessible. So that at the end of the day, we are still contributing to what the women's movement has been doing right from the beginning. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, Danita.
Thank you so much. So first of all, to clear up, Umoja is not me, guys. It's us. It's us. It's in the name.
Yes,
it's
associate.
together.
Yes, associate.
It's together. It's yes. Fellow associates. Exactly. So, but what I have to say is, please be comfortable with failing and with shifting not in a heartbeat. There needs to be some evaluation, but you need to, not from your primary goal, but new information will come in, new opportunity will come in, new resources will come in, and you need to be able to integrate your final goal into all that. That is an aspect to it all, but figure out your resources. Your resources might be people in your networks. Your resources might be fellow young organizations, older organizations. Your resources might be, the CSR branch of an organization, right? It's much easier for
CSR.
you. Corporate social responsibility,
Yes.
like MTN, Airtel, DHL, whatever those might be. Majority of them have an aspect of them that each year they put money towards certain things. It might be women's rights in some organizations. It might be climate change in others. Whatever it might be, evaluate those. Those are much easier to penetrate than typical donor funding is, mostly because these organizations operate on ground, so it's easier for them to follow up on you. Someone in America is not going to give you money easily because they don't know what you're doing. But more than that, when you are approaching an older organization or a more traditional organization, it doesn't have to be for money. It does not have to be for money. And I think we overreach in that aspect. Some of these organizations are struggling themselves, but more than that, the resources they have to give you in regards to a seat at the table it is immeasurable. Someone will say, okay, we want you to give 100K, and then what? I've actually had these complaints from EDs of older organizations. Like, I'm okay with sending that 100K, but I don't think you've fully appreciated what I can give you, right? A conversation, a capacity building, say, can we sit in your boardroom with 5 of our staff members, and you teach us how to do this? Just an afternoon, 2 hours, and your lives will be changed. Your lives will be proper changed in that regard. But the first thing is actually starting and completing something. Something must be started and something must be completed. The very, very first thing within the resources that are available to you. Numbers help, obviously. If you're able to stretch whatever you have in regards to finances to do something that involves numbers, it's very, very helpful. It gives you traction. It might not be your end goal, but at the very least, it showcases your work and that you're actually doing something, and it is able to open much more doors to you. So, let me see. Finally, in my closing remarks, I have to say I'm going to sing the same song of sustainability. Guys, let's work as entities. Let us take into account who we are. I think our interests are the same. I would like to believe, though I might be corrected, our interests are the same in the end. A world where women and girls are women and girls.
Yeah.
That is just it. Fully humane and fully humanized. So, as a movement, what are we going to do to make that happen together? Sustainability comes in part from togetherness. So let's build up on that. In solidarity, Sharifa was saying that she's very available to, mentor, showcase, whatnot. We as Umoja are very available to give you a community in which you can network in, at the very least, to give you a community in which you can partake in a cause that matters, to give you access to individual spaces, maybe people who can, at the very least, help you with certain aspects of your organization or building. It doesn't matter if you're an individual, it doesn't matter if you're an organization, it doesn't matter what you do matters. But what we mean is that in the end, if that is your final goal, please come through FemFort, right? As that's what Esther said earlier. Please do reach out. We're very, very happy to stand in solidarity for the same goal, a world where women are humanized.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much, ladies. Thank you, Sharifa. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Danita. I mean, who wouldn't come this far without you, huh? Sure. I told you guys to be ready for to be wowed today. Thank you so much, our viewers, for listening in. I hope you have picked a thing or two, because these have been very, very concretized conversations. Thank you so much and have a lovely day. We remain FemPort. My name is Esther Awar, and this is the Hall of Fame podcast. The theme has been claiming the spaces. Exactly.